Okay, so have you ever traveled to a foreign country only to find out that they don't speak English? How annoying is that? Hello! Welcome to the Polyglot Files. My name is Michael and today we're doing a video about English. Before we get started, I did want to point out that today's video topic was inspired by a live stream that I watched between Azrin the Language Nerd and Matt and Abigail from Polyglot Progress. At one point in the live stream, the topic of monolingualism and English and an international language came up, and it got me thinking. I'll leave the link to the live stream in the description box below, but primarily this video will aim to answer two questions. Number one, should there be an international official language that everybody speaks? And number two, should that language be English? Let's explore. In case you didn't know, English is a West Germanic language that originated from Anglo-Frisian dialects that were brought to Britain starting in the 5th century. Because it is West Germanic, English is closely related to other Northwest European languages, such as German, Dutch, and Frisian. Due largely to British conquests and the expansion of the British Empire starting in the 1500s, today you can find English speakers in virtually every corner of the world. English is an official language in 54 countries, as well as a de facto official language in dozens more. According to Ethnologue, English is the most spoken language in the world if you count native and second language speakers, and it is spoken by a whopping 1.1 billion people. That means that 1 in every 7 people on Earth speak English to some degree. As you can imagine, if we're trying to answer the question as to whether or not English should be the international official language, by these numbers alone, it seems that the answer is yes. I mean, English is so widespread and it's brought so many people from different backgrounds together that it only really makes sense that English become the international official language. But those statistics aren't the only reason why. For example, English is also the international language for business and the economy. In fact, if we look at GDP figures, the top 8 countries in the Anglosphere, or the top 8 countries that have English as an official or de facto official language, account for $22.11 trillion, or 25% of the global gross domestic product. And this doesn't account for the other 70 some odd countries that have English as an official or de facto official language. However, this number alone proves that English is the language for business and that English-speaking countries drive the global economy. Furthermore, on a more practical and personal level, if English was the international official language for the entire world, that would do away with a lot of miscommunication that there is between speakers of different languages, and we really wouldn't have the need to have to learn all these foreign languages or have to translate between them. Besides, English has already done away with learning other languages in many other spheres. For example, 56% of the internet is in English, and 80% of all stored information is stored in English. Speaking English already gives you so much access to the world, but can you imagine how much easier scholarship, travel, and business would be if we all just spoke English? Just think about how much more time and energy we could save. Now, if you are a regular viewer of this channel, I hope you've realized at this point that I don't actually believe that English should be the international official language. Sure, I've offered some pretty compelling reasons for why it should be. However, I sure as heck wouldn't waste this much time and energy into learning foreign languages and talking about foreign languages if I didn't see the value in doing so. So, what are the reasons why I don't believe English should be the international official language? First of all, if you know anything about history, you know that empires rise and empires fall. For example, if we look back at the European continent in the year 117 CE, we can see that the Roman Empire is at its greatest extent. During that time, large groups of people from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds spoke Latin, either as their native language or as a second language. However, fast forward 1900 years, and we can see that Latin is dead. Well, I mean, it survives as a clerical language, and I guess technically Latin evolved into the Romance languages, but Latin itself, as it was spoken in the Roman Empire, is gone. Pretty much. So what does this have to do with English? This isn't the history files, Michael. What I'm trying to say is that the Roman Empire at one point in time had conquered and dominated a big chunk of the world, but it collapsed. At some point in the future, and I have no real reason to believe this because technically I can't really predict the future, I believe that English and the dominance of the English language worldwide will probably crumble as well. And when it does, English will become obsolete and undesirable, a new language will fill the vacuum, and people hundreds or thousands of years from now will be having this same discussion about the new world lingua franca. Now, that's hardly a reason why English can't be the official international language for today, but there are other reasons. I believe that neither English nor any other language for that matter should be the official international language simply because it would lead to a lack of linguistic diversity and it would ultimately lead to language death. I know that it's easy to think that language death really isn't a big deal, but for me, language death isn't simply about a language dying. It's also about the loss of a culture and the loss of a unique way of thinking. We know that language forms the way in which we perceive and the way that we conceptualize the world. And we know that language is very, very tied to culture. If English became the official international language, we would see language death on a large scale. And in many ways, we already are. But I just think it would be a terrible reality for people who would inevitably lose links to their identity and to their culture if they adopted an English-only attitude. Lastly, I also think that English shouldn't be the world's official language because of its past. Now I know I'm gonna be labeled a snowflake and a social justice warrior and a bleeding heart liberal for saying this, but the reason why I don't believe that English should be the official language of the world is because English has a colonial past, and that inherently makes English the language of the oppressor. Actually, many European languages are languages of oppressors. And I learn a lot of European languages. Maybe I need to unpack that. The point I'm trying to make is that by dictating to people that English should be the world's official language, we are effectively continuing the ongoing legacy of colonialism by forcing them to abandon their home language as well as parts of their culture in order to be more convenient for people in positions of power. I just mean that by having English speakers dictate to non-English speakers that they must speak English, we are no better than the colonists who killed and stole and forbid indigenous peoples from all over the world from speaking their native tongues. Whew, that got a little heavy. I'm interested in your thoughts. Should there be an international official language? Should that language be English? Let me know in the comments below. However, I do want to tell you that there are people of many different opinions who come from many different worldviews. Just be sensitive to that. Be a nice person. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check me out on social media. I have a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As usual, thank you for watching the Polyglot Files, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!